Hey, welcome everybody to Pro Mindset Podcast. This is your host, Craig Domann. Today we have a very special guest. Every week is special, but this one is extra special. This is one of my homies. This is one of my favorite clients. This is a young man that I represented for 11 years out of K-State, who played for the Chiefs, played for the Colts, played for the Broncos, primarily with the Colts and the Chiefs. His name is Ryan Lilja. Ryan, welcome to Pro Mindset today.
Thanks, buddy. It's good to be here. Glad it worked out. The first time was a little awkward with the technology, and that was my bad. I switched settings and everything, so make sure it worked.
Well, for everybody, this is take two, but the best one's got to be the second one. So Ryan, I'm going to give a little bit more background on Ryan. From Kansas City, kind of a Kansas City guy. Grew up in Lake Quivira, played at K-State, went to junior college first, played at K-State, and went to the Chiefs and almost made it. And you're like the 50th, and Dick Vermeil had to let you go, and they were planning on re-signing you back to the practice squad, and you were claimed by the Colts, which at that moment probably wasn't fun, but it ended up being a blessing because you got a Super Bowl ring, and none of those guys you played with in Kansas City got a Super Bowl ring in Kansas City. Now they give them out like every year in Kansas City.
And that is too, man. I mean, they're just ungodly, massive, and shiny, and
we're crazy. I took Brock to the Pro Football Hall of Fame in Canton one year, and I got pictures with him, and I took pictures of the rings because they've got a ring from every Super Bowl. None of those rings look like what they look like now. I mean, these things are feel like tens of thousands of dollars.
It's insane, man. It's wild. We got a nice understated kind of blue with the horseshoe, and but then it went wonky probably 10 years ago. It looks like a hubcap on your hand, man. I don't even know. I'm sure these guys don't wear them around, because it's impossible. But yeah, congrats to those guys.
It's only for show and tell day.
Totally.
Okay, so Ryan, I'm going to tee you up a little bit. You've got a wonderful wife, Jess. You got 4 awesome kids. Had the opportunity a few weeks ago, Teddy and I, to have dinner at your house. It was absolutely chaos, but it was so beautiful because everybody had their own personality. You had no control of your kids. You had no idea. I mean, I know there's some wine stashed, some stuff to get the kids in bed, but that's the beautiful part of life sometimes is when things are crazy and a little bit out of control. And you bought in recently to a financial services company. So you are helping people manage their money. And you did a great job managing your own money, not like a lot of guys. You also coach youth football, 5th graders, with your son. And I'm sure you do a lot of other things. You try to play golf like me. You're a lot better than
bad day, man.
Terrible day. We ain't going to tell you about that. That was in the bloopers show right there. But kind of share with everybody your story from your perspective, starting when connected to football, high school, junior college, K-State, and then we'll go into the NFL, and then we'll talk about life too.
Yeah, well, just back to what you said about dinner. It was wonderful hanging with you and Teddy, and it was long overdue, and you're absolutely right about the chaos. I gave up a long time ago trying to control any of this stuff. I let Jess try to manage it, but yeah, you get to see what it's like on a day-to-day basis, man. But it's fun. I never thought I'd have that many kids, and I never really thought about this part of life. But grew up not too far from where I'm sitting here, and went to high school at Shawnee Mission Northwest. They actually they enacted a rule my senior year that was like a 0 tolerance drug, alcohol, tobacco policy for all extracurricular activities. And long story boring, I was at a high school party. The cops came around the back. I was sitting there, bunch of beer cans and whatnot. Me and a girl were sitting on the back deck. They told us, come inside, called everybody's parents, drove home. It was all fine. And so the gal whose home it was, her parents were out of town, and they called the school and said, "Hey, I want these kids punished." So I actually got kicked off the team my senior year. I played 2 games my senior year. I was kind of marginal size-wise. I was getting recruited, Big 12, Big 10, some Ivy Leagues, and I was excited. I was ready to kind of play my senior year and go on some official visits and hopefully get some offers. And getting kicked off the team, obviously that didn't happen, so I kind of had to make a decision if I wanted to go to play Division II ball or maybe walk on. I always wanted to play at K-State for Coach Snyder. That was kind of always my dream. And I kind of heard through the grapevine that the best way to do that would be to go to junior college and kind of prove myself for 3 semesters, 2 seasons, and then hope that I got their attention. So that's kind of what happened. I went to Coffeyville Community College down in Southeast Kansas, and K-State offered me late. I played a tackle for 2 years, and I was just kind of waiting on bated breath for them to finally offer me. Some other schools, I went on some visits. Never went on a visit to K-State. Didn't need to. I think they knew that that's kind of where I wanted to be. So then I got there. I never redshirted, and I go into this room with a bunch of giants and talented guys. But the 3 semesters, the 2 seasons I had at Coffeyville kind of prepared me, for the physical side of it, because junior college football is kind of no joke. And then I got to K-State, and it was and it was harder than most schools too, from a program standpoint, just from an intensity level. But in JUCO, it was a grind, and so I didn't play much my junior year, and I ended up starting my senior year. We were in the Big 12. We lost to Ohio State in the Fiesta Bowl that year. That's when I met you. I was just happy. I was just happy to be able to be a starter and win some games and contribute to a conference championship. I thought that was kind of the end of the road, and I was going to finish my degree. And I didn't think I was cut out for the NFL, and never believed that. Even my first year or 2 in the NFL, I wasn't sure I belonged there, as you remember maybe. But yeah, so I thought, why not, give this a shot. And I met with you, and you gave me some great advice. You're always excellent at that. Didn't go to the combine, didn't play in any all-star games. I think we had 8 guys on my team get invited to the combine. I didn't get invited. Had a pro day. I think it was kind of underwhelming. I don't think I impressed anybody really, but got in with the Chiefs. The Chiefs had like a Kansas, Missouri tryout day, and it was small schools and on the Kansas and Missouri side, and I'm not sure how much influence that had, but I ended up watching the draft and hoping somebody was going to be foolish enough to take a chance on me, and that didn't happen, and that ended up being a blessing too, because then with your help I got to pick where I could go, as opposed to some other buddies who were drafted in later rounds and they didn't get a pick and they went to bad programs. And so anyway, signed with the Chiefs, $500 signing bonus, and that was more money than I'd ever had in my life. And so I thought I could live at home with my mom, and she was a nurse, and I could save the money. I was going to make $75,000. I was going to learn from the best offensive line in the league at the time. That Chiefs offensive line, that Chiefs offense was a special unit, and it was the 54th guy on the roster. I was the last guy they cut, and signed the practice squad papers and get claimed by the Colts, and was up there for 6 years. And my head was spinning when I first got into that huddle with all those Hall of Famers. And guys, I wasn't the biggest football fan in the world, but I knew who those guys were. It was Peyton and Marvin Harrison and Dallas Clark and Reggie Wayne and Stokely and Saturday and Tart Glenn and Ryan Deem. And I'm going, man, don't screw this up. You don't be the weak link here. And so, I blinked, and then 6 years went by. We won a lot of games. I became a full-time starter my second year, started 6 games my rookie year, and full-time starter my second year. And we had a lot of success, won a bunch of games, went to a couple Super Bowls, won one, had a bunch of injuries, I had 4 surgeries on my knee. It was quite a run, and ended up signing a second contract, a 5-year deal. I was thrilled, and missed the entire first year and had 2 more surgeries trying to figure out what was going on with my knee. And anyway, ended up coming back the next year, had the best year of my career, and got cut 2 years into a 5-year deal, and was ready to quit football at that point because I was so pissed off. Yeah. But there was teams out there. I didn't want to go to Buffalo or Detroit or Jacksonville or New York Jets. I didn't want to do that. And you negotiated a good deal with the Chiefs, which brought me back home. And my wife's from here, and all our family's here. So that was attractive to be able to finish out my career with the Chiefs. We stunk. Ended up winning 10 games my first year. Won the division. Lost a playoff game to the Ravens at home. Next year, we win 7 games. Coach gets fired. And then my last year here in 2012, we win 2 games. And I skipped out the door and skipped into retirement, was ready to shut it down. So,
All right, let me jump in here and just say this. You started more than 100 games in the NFL. The average player in the NFL doesn't start at all. The average player plays 3.3 games, regular season games. Everybody thinks it's 3 years. It's not 3 years. It's 3 games. Because there's guys today that are in the NFL. There's 16 of them on every team that are on the practice squad that are not going to smell the field. Then you got another handful of guys that are inactive every Sunday, and they're not touching the field. So you played like 33x what the average NFL player plays, which is awesome. And what I can tell you guys about Ryan was, I wasn't sure if I wanted to sign him. I mean, I'm going through this process trying to figure this stuff out. And Coach Bielema calls me, and he was a D coordinator at K-State at the time. And he goes, "You'd be an idiot not to sign this guy. He's a pain in the ass for our linebacker." This guy, Nick Leckie, was getting all the love from the draft prognosticators. And Nick is a good friend of yours and a colleague and all that stuff, former teammate. But Coach Bielema said, "Lilja's a dude. They'll find out. All he has to do is get in camp. They'll figure it out." So I trusted him. And, the rest is history. But the thing that you had was the ability to not. Most people, when they see like tall trees and they're a small tree, they go, "I'm never going to be a big tree." I mean, Tariq Glynn's a monster. Okay. Some of these guys that you played with are just ginormous. Ryan Dean, same way. But you and Jeff Saturday were smart. You were athletic. You were dependable and reliable and all those things. And that's what the Colts needed. That's what Peyton Manning demanded. You ain't going to mess up. You didn't mess up. You might have got beat from time to time because the dude across the line is just a freak. But you didn't mess up. And so coaches can deal with that because they can game plan people. But if a dude doesn't show up, you can't play him. You don't know. If you can't trust that guy, you can't play him. So you had a hell of a career. And the fact that you got a Super Bowl ring, you had developed financial security, you've been able to build a life after football that most guys go through an identity crisis for 4 or 5 years. I'm sure you did too, because everybody does. And maybe it was inside your head, because everybody does. Think about it. After you became a Super Bowl champion in 2008, it was 2007 season, but it was 2008 Super Bowl. Now you're a Super Bowl champion. That was your identity. So you come back home to Kansas City, you're a Super Bowl champion. You're a football player. But you're way more than a football player. You have so much to give to the world than just being a football player. But the world's telling you you're just a football player. True or false?
Pretty true. Yeah. Yeah, it's pretty true.
Even family and friends.
Yeah.
They put you on a pedestal because you're a football player. But you're still just right.
Mm-hmm.
And so I think there's a struggle that players go through because they see themselves as their identity is what they do, not who they are. And when they start thinking it, they get it right, their friends and family mess it up for them because they see them as a football player. Makes it really tough. We've been really very careful with our boys. They're not just football players, right?
Mm-hmm.
And then here's a funny story. My son's first offer, JoJo's first offer, was at K-State. So we go on a visit to K-State. Going through the facility, one of the first mugs and ugly mugs on the wall is yours. Hey.
Yeah.
Like, I'll be dang. And then what does JoJo do? He goes to Indianapolis. And I see you after, I can't remember, was it Saturday? Was it Tariq that got inducted into the Hall of Ring of Honor?
Yeah, it was Tariq. Yep.
Yeah. So we hook up afterwards and have a nice dinner. But the bottom line, and then JoJo ends up staying in your crib in Indianapolis. So it's like our ass you're trying to get away from me. I know, but you can't. Okay.
Not true.
And I think one of the coolest things is you are exactly today where I was about the time we met. Family full of kids. I mean, you're going a million miles an hour. Your wife, you're just passing, you're like 2 ships passing in the night. You don't sit down and have a beer and watch, have popcorn and watch a movie because you don't got time. As somebody, you both are Uber drivers, right?
Yeah.
And there's always some drama going on because that's what being a parent's about. Some drama with somebody all the time. So I would like for you to share with our audience the conversation or the topic of the conversation we had right before we went on air. And then when we were on the golf course a few weeks ago, because you're now a head football coach for a fifth grade team your son is on, and you have so much influence for so many reasons on their love of the game, on their experience in the sport, and how they see themselves and see their futures in the sport.
Yeah.
You can run it for them, or you can build them up. So I'll be quiet and let you talk.
Yeah. You and I were talking about this, and I was 2 games into the season, 0-2, and pretty convincing losses, quite honestly. Didn't know what to expect. First year of tackle football, big learning curve, not just for the kids, but for the coaches, especially the first-time coaches. And you tell me I went 52-2, in my career as coaching my boys, and you got to pick it up, man, because you're going to ruin the game for these guys if you guys don't start winning. And people are going to think you're a shitty coach. And I go, well, they may be right. I'm saying to think I'm a shitty coach. And, the whole time I'm thinking, like, how can I structure an efficient, 2-hour practice and keep them engaged and keep them working, fundamentals, technique, right, and everything. And I forgot, like, to bake the fun part into it. And that was what you said, is you said, here's some things we did, and you got to do this. And to bring pizza, I'd order pizzas and bring pizzas to practice. And, you got to do that, and you got to include every kid and let them throw the ball, let them catch the ball, and, make it fun for them. And I'm going, man, you got a good point. And you always gave me the best advice. Quite frankly, was you'd always give me a nugget or two every time we talked, where I'd go, and every off season without fail, it was like you'd give me, it would reframe my mind a little bit, and that was no different. And so we've done some different things, and I've seen the results, and the last 2 weeks they've dominated, and they're playing as a team. And they're playing harder, and they're more into the game. I can tell they're not thinking as much. They're at this point that there's only so much I can tell them about their stances, and about their footwork and about those kind of things. I think they've heard it all, and now they can go play and compete. And I was telling you before, I always just kind of assumed that I get tired when my wife or when we go to another kid's game or a soccer game or a swim meet or whatever it is, and there's this big exchange of baskets of goodies and gifts and candy and crap, right? And after a soccer game, they get a Gatorade and a bag of chocolate, muffins and a can of Pringles. And I'm going, it's like an arms race with the moms in this area to see who can give the kids diabetes quicker. And I'm going, like, this becomes the whole point of the thing, right? It's like, wait, who won the game? How'd you play? Did you have fun? Right? Didn't you pass to? All that stuff is lost because, now they have starbursts or whatever. And so I was kind of anti that. I thought, this is football. It's going to be different. We're going to get them out there. We're going to demand a standard, right? Whatever it is, it could be low, but we're going to hold them accountable. And the competition and being with your buddies and playing the game is what it's about. And that is inherently the reward. It's not ice cream after practice or, fun stuff, right? I mean, football hadn't been fun for me really for a long, long time. It's a different thing, and so that I think was a big part of getting their buy-in. And now, the goal is to make it their favorite sport. At the end of this year, I want all 24 of our boys to say, tackle football is my favorite sport. And this was my favorite year. And that's what I want. And I think I was missing the big part of that, which is it's got to be fun, right? It's got to be fun. So it's been a lot more fun watching them have fun and watching them play together. And I appreciate, your help in that, as always.
How has it showed up with your son? I mean, your son's going to be athletic. He already is athletic. I was playing basketball with him, horse in the driveway. How has the fun affected him?
It's kind of interesting because oddly, he's kind of become more serious since the fun stuff, right? We had a sack dance competition and a touchdown celebration, and we've had some different fun stuff. And I think he's kind of like me, where he likes structure and routine. He likes predictability. And it's kind of like you told me, you told the boys, and I told Mark this a couple times on the way to practice, like, I'm your dad in the car, right? But when we get on the field, I'm your coach. So, I'm going to treat you like every other kid, right? And I'm going to be dad again once we get back in the car and all that. But so to answer your question, I think he's kind of become more like he's a grinder. And I think, again, he's become a leader on the team after 4 games. He's a center. He's the best blocker. He's the most aggressive kid on the line of scrimmage on both sides of the ball. And I think he digs it. What I think has really affected him the most is winning. And when they won that first game, and that wasn't my goal when I got into this deal, was to win all the games. I thought that would just be a byproduct of all the great stuff we're going to teach him. But to your point, winning and the rewards for all the hard work of the preparation part of the game is huge. And so after that first game, man, it was like something galvanized this group of boys. And then they went and rattled off another one on Saturday. And now I think they understand, after 2 games, 2 losses and two back-to-back wins, that, like Nick LaLoosh and Bull Durham said, winning I like better because it's like better than losing. And with him, I think he's like, I want to win and I want to dominate. And so he doesn't engage in a lot of the playing around as much as some of the other kids do, which is fine. But he wants to compete, and that's really what I want for him. He can have fun the rest of the day, but I want him to learn how to compete and all those other things that are important about team sports.
Here's something that I noticed when my kids were going through youth sports. Winning validates your work. It affirms who you are. It gives you respect from your parents and from your friends. And then you start learning new ways to win. So you think about football, there's a lot of different ways to win. There may be a game you play where, you know what, it's going to be a defensive struggle. Nobody's going to throw any touchdown passes. Nobody's going to be the hero returning, 50 yards on a run. No, it's going to be a grinder game. Mm-hmm. Then there's another game you might win it on special teams. But it's like their brains start learning that, hey, the objective here is to have more points than the other team when the clock hits 0. But there's a million different ways to win.
Yeah.
Let's just take basketball. Mark's a basketball player. Sometimes it's going to be shooting the 3. Sometimes they're going to take away the 3. He's going to have to do back doors and get passes from his buddies. Sometimes he's going to take it to the hole. Sometimes he's going to win it from the free throw line. Yeah. Sometimes he's going to win it because he steals the ball. He busts his ass on defense. So it's like there's not one way to win. Yeah. They don't know that yet. But the more they learn that.
Yeah. And that's kind of the fun of the game is as you're talking like this, I'm thinking back to games we won with, just field goals or, maybe the offense laid an egg. And that's one of those things that I'm trying to get through these kids' head, and also my son in particular, is that I think a lot of these kids, in the way sports are, professional sports, and they can tell you anything. They can tell you how much a guy's salary is on the Denver Nuggets, right? And we never watch the Nuggets, and we don't, they know about individuals. They don't see the team part of it. And that to me is the beauty of it, because, at the risk of sounding corny, life is a team sport, and football is the ultimate team sport. And so to introduce these boys to the game, and be their first introduction, it was an obligation, and it's like, it was an honor, really, right? But a lot of them would rather play well and lose than play poorly and win. And you see that, and I know that to be true for a lot of these kids, in my son included. And so, that's one of those things that you want to kind of work through with them, right? And that it is a team, right? And you got to play your part, and you might get your ass kicked. But if the team wins, then that's the goal, right? That is the goal, is for the team to win, even if you get your ass kicked. So anyway, it's been a lot of fun. I'm kind of a romantic about the game and teaching kind of life lessons through it. That's what got me excited about coaching the boys. And frankly, that's kind of what I see missing from youth sports in a lot of ways. It's become such an industry. But so yeah, all of those things, man, and you're the same way, right? So, you understand it better than I do. But to see them kind of have an introduction to it, to learn how to compete, to learn, they're not wine glasses. It took them a couple of weeks. We had a rash of concussions, and some of them thought they broke a leg, and, you got to kind of go like, hey, well, maybe they did break a leg, because that's happened, right? And I told my daughter, your arm's not broken, but it was. But so, yeah, now I think they understand the contact part of it, and they realize they're not going to break, right? And that they're going to get up and they might get the wind knocked out of them, but they come back normal. And so it's been a ride, man. It's been a ton of fun. So we got a bye week this weekend, and we're going to watch film for the first time, which for me was always just a stress sandwich, win, lose, or draw. You want to watch film, those plays that you got your ass kicked on. And you know those plays that you jumped off sides or that you had a mental error or whatever it is, and you're just dreading it because you know better. But for these kids, we're going to point out all the good stuff they do and show them kind of I'm excited about it. I think it's the best tool in all of sports is just self-scout on video. And nowadays with these digital platforms they have, it's so unbelievable because, the sophistication and the level of granularity you can get with film nowadays. It's almost too much. It was for fifth grade. We're just going to watch the game through, might rewind a couple of times, but yeah, so it's been a blast.
I have two thoughts on that. One is definitely highlight their successes. And secondly, talk about the concept of how mental errors take no talent. I mean, not knowing the count, jumping off sides, lining up off sides, all those things, having 10 guys on the field or 12 guys on the field, all those things take no talent. They just take attention and show in the game the places where the other team made mental errors. Because the kid that made the same mental error for you can connect the dots. He can connect the dots.
Yeah.
Instead of showing him, hey, dummy, you did it. No, just show the other team that did it. He'll know he did it.
Yeah, the speed at which these guys learn. And you don't always think that, right? Because you're like, I told you your splits are a foot, and you're 5 feet away from the guard. So you don't always think it, but they pick up stuff so quickly. It's almost startling. But yeah, as long as you got their attention, and I find, and it's no mystery, I don't think, but praise and recognition is more powerful, than really anything. I mean, there are studies that say it's more, people appreciate that more than being compensated. Right. They just want to be told that they did a good job. And I understand that. And, I never want to, I had some coaches, you knew several of my coaches and I love those guys to death, but they didn't care about your feelings. And this is a little different, so I have to remind myself that sometimes, not often, but, you're dealing with kids, man. And they when they have your attention and you recognize something they did, they listen.
I guarantee you that your son cares more about what you think of him and how you thought he played than how he thought he played.
Yeah.
Because all he wants is affirmation from his dad. Well, every kid is in that same boat. Some dads may not be around. Some may be. Some may have unrealistic expectations for their kid. They're fifth graders. They haven't even started growing yet. They haven't even growth spurt. But that dad, for some reason, wants his son to be a certain way. And he might be if he's just patient and allow him to just develop. I think youth sports today, all the way up to the pros, almost in every sport, we don't give the athlete a chance to develop. We expect them to know it. Hey, you tell them 2 or 3 times, man, you should know now. No, sometimes you got to do that 10,000 rep thing before you get it out.
Yeah.
So I think, part of being a youth coach is also communicating with the parents and calling them out nicely that, hey, do you want to be the reason why your kid gets burned out? Do you want to be the reason why your kid quits?
Yeah,
Or do
it's a
you
real
want,
thing.
right? Or do you want to be the reason why your kid grows 4 inches in one summer and becomes Superman because you didn't judge him, you didn't criticize him, and you gave him the space that he needed to grow into what you knew he could be, but you didn't get to dictate the time.
Yeah. I mean, I think several coaches and program directors like to talk about effort and attitude and how that's the criteria, right? I believe that. And I don't care. I would rather have a kid play on our team that gives effort and has a good attitude, than is big or strong or talented or fast or any of that. And anybody, like you said, anybody can give effort, right? And a lot of them don't know how big their gas tank is, right? So that's fun too, is to try to, illustrate that, like, it's kind of unlimited, like you got a ways to go. It's in there. And, but anybody can give effort and anybody can have a good attitude. And, those are my favorite guys that come with both of those. And if you got talent and ability, then that's the jackpot. But, we don't ask, and focus. I throw focus in there too sometimes. I think that's a choice. I think you could choose to focus, and focus matters in football and the team sport. It matters because if you screw up, it's funny because, I was kind of debating it with our offensive coordinator. Are we going to pull guards? He really wants to pull guards because he wants to get more guys out at the point of attack. And I'm going, well, we don't know what kind of front they're going to get, right? Like, we really don't. And we can get a bare front. We can get an even front, A gaps. We don't really know. And I don't want to teach the offense. I'm teaching these guys up front to block. And I don't want to have to teach them who pulls when. And I don't want guys running in the backfield, right? I mean, unaccounted for. So he's like, you got to pull. And so I was watching an NFL game, and they had I don't know, it might have been the Ravens, but they had both guards pulled and ran into each other. And it's saying, in the game, and it's like, it just made me chuckle because, even the best in the world, can screw it up too. So anyway, they're pulling now, but we'll see how it goes. But yeah, you got to focus, man. Right? Like, if you give me 2 hours, it's only 90 minutes now. We're losing sunlight here. So, we have a 90-minute practice. It flies by. And so it's like, just give us your focus for a little while, and we'll all be better off for it. But it's a blast.
You played for 2 Super Bowl winning coaches. Obviously, Tony Dungy with you, and Dick Vermeil won it with the Rams. So you played for both of those guys, right?
Yeah.
Tell me one thing you learned from each of those coaches that has made it more of a lasting impact on you, that maybe you can pass on to your team that you didn't even realize that you got it from Dungy or you got it from Vermeil.
Yeah, I don't know if I was lucky enough to get any of their stuff. I hope I got some of it. But, Coach Vermeil was compassion and relationships. I think that was the only reason he did it. He didn't care about trophies or glory. He cared about others, which was just clear, and he didn't say that. He lived that. That was who he was. That was neat. And getting to see that for a little while first, in person, because I was a fan. I'm a Chiefs fan. You don't really understand that necessarily when you're a fan, but when you're in the locker room, you're in the meeting rooms, on the practice field, traveling on the buses, that's all he was. He was just constantly praising and pointing out others. And he was authentic, and he genuinely cared. And, Coach Dungy, I think he kind of had a stoic nature, right? He had such a strong faith in God, and, his compass was so strong that nothing riled him up ever. That steadiness, I admired it. I admire it now. I admire it more now because I strive for that. Sometimes, I get fired up and I have a temper, and so he never had that. But those 2 qualities that those guys had, I mean, it was amongst many, they had, but they were always about other people. Both of those guys were. So that was kind of a common thread. And I don't think it's an accident that they were successful and that the guys they coached were successful. And, but they were kind of men for others.
That's awesome. That's usually the way it is. Usually. Kind of pivoting a little bit. What are you going to do when one of your kids comes home from school and says that they want to go to college at KU?
I said, absolutely not. I mean, good question. I've asked myself that question, honestly. It's a good school. I'm not one of those, it would be fine if they give me good reasons for it, but right now they want to, most of them want to go to K-State. Mom and dad went to K-State. We've taken them back there a couple times, gone to games, and really what I really want for them is to do their own thing. Right. And just, I don't care where it is, but have a reason for it and don't do it because someone else did it. Right. Do it, think it through, be intentional. And that's what I would like. But there's a lot of house divided license plates around town, KU and K-State. I really don't want one of those, but I'll let them kind of be the masters of their own domain and they can figure it out on their own.
Okay, let's skip to money for a second. You being in the financial services world, helping entrepreneurs, business people, docs, all these people that want to have a financial plan. What is the biggest mistake athletes tend to make that maybe people in their 40s and 50s don't make because it takes them a while to grow their money, where these athletes today, especially the quarterbacks, are making $50 million a year? What's like the blind spot that athletes have, that if you're out there and you're listening and you're killing it, maybe you're not even an athlete, but you're killing it, you need to be mindful about?
I think with athletes, and it's, this isn't anything earth shattering, right? It's not for long in the NFL, right? Everybody knows that. All the guys know that. And your money goes up when you're in the league, but it comes back down. And sometimes it just gets shut off. Right. And so having kind of playing the tape through and having having that end in mind and understanding also the time value of money, right? Where if you're 22 years old and you've got a lot of money and you have some discipline, right? And you can invest that wisely and safely, the value that can bring to you and your family later on in life is enormous at that age when you get that type of money. But, in my career, just, I think seeing guys that just kind of lived in the moment and lived for the now, and they had it, and then they do what they wanted with it. And in some ways I admire that, because, I think we all sometimes kind of want to live like that, where you're here and now. But I always like to kind of bury the acorns, for the winter. And I knew, the sad part about it really, Craig, is like when guys break their, I don't know that the game is as, and I could be way off on this, but I don't know if the game is as physically taxing maybe now as it was maybe 15 years ago, 25 years ago. You're right. You practice a lot. Off seasons were a lot. Now they're a little bit lighter and more strategic about training and taking care of the body, taking hits off guys. But the sad part is when guys screw up their bodies or their brains and then they don't have anything to show for it. So, I was always pretty tuned in to the physical sacrifices of the game, right? I felt like I was always hurt. I remember my senior year getting my ankles injected, both ankles injected before the Fiesta Bowl. And the doc would always say, if I hit a nerve, you'll feel it shoot down the bottom of your foot, and just tell me. And he hit a nerve on both of my ankles, and he'd never had before. And the bottom of my feet were numb, right? Like they were like asleep. You couldn't feel the ground. You felt like you were running around on clubbed feet. And I that kind of struck me like, and my ankles still hurt, right? The weather changes and my ankles get stiff again, and like I'm kind of limping around. But man, I was in the training room all the time. And so I thought, even that $9,500, I probably spent $500, right? Like pretty quick. And had a good time. But, I was very conscious about saving it and investing it, because I had some people in my life that kind of showed me the power of investing. And I always just I think it suited my personality that, you don't kind of that live like nobody now so that you can live like no one else later, right? Basically sacrifice for the present in the present for the past. And so, and I splurged a little bit, but I mean, I was always trying to save my money because I wanted to be able to have that autonomy and do what I wanted. And I didn't have to go get into media or have to get into coaching and to make money and to support a lifestyle. So that's kind of sad to see, but business owners are different, right? I mean, business owners can continue to earn more in perpetuity throughout their careers and then they have an economic engine that they can actually sell that's worth money. But in football, man, it's like you are your engine, and when and your engine has finite mileage, and when you hit that high mileage area, man, you better start tucking away some stuff for a rainy day.
Absolutely, and you did a great job on that. Let's go back and let's look at the rearview mirror. Look in the rearview mirror at your career. What was the highest moment in your career, and what was the emotional response that you had to that moment?
Highest, when I missed that year, trying to remember what was that 2009 season, maybe 2010. I can't remember. But when I missed that season,
8 or 9.
And then I came back. That first game, it was a home game against Jacksonville. I've got a nice picture of a screen pass to Joseph Adai that we ran, and that was a meaningful game for me because that was the hardest time of my career, probably my life, maybe, was getting paid, right, and having that validation that they believed in me to that extent. They didn't pay their guards. They usually let them walk in free agency, and that meant a lot to me because I knew the nucleus of that team was strong and was going to go to win championships. And then to not playing at all and to I always felt like I had people in the building questioning your toughness, questioning your character, right? And I get it. I just signed a contract and I didn't play the following season. So that was like a ton of just mental anguish that year. And then I ended up having a couple more surgeries, right? You might remember this, went out to California, and was on PEP, and I was doing all this biomechanics stuff, and my glute and my quad shut down, right? And from all the surgeries, and I trying to get them activated and trying to fix this tracking issue on my kneecap and stuff. And so kind of that last surgery, it was a lateral release, and they said they don't do this anymore because, you're opening up the retinaculum, the tendinous sheath around the joint, and it frees up the capsule in the joint. But when it heals back down, it tightens up more. So, I was always kind of like, well, this is kind of, as far as I can tell, this is the last best thing we can try. And then I rehabbed the shit out of it, and I was in the best shape of my life going into that season. And I started every game that season. But that first game back was super meaningful for me because of the year that I had off and all that went on physically and kind of emotionally. And I'd met my wife during that time. And so it was a weird time. But getting back, that game was probably, to me, I don't know. I guess you should say the Super Bowl, right? But that was, for me, that was probably the most meaningful time just because of the tough time I had leading up to it.
I would agree. I remember that pretty vividly. That whole year, it was just, you were trying to get answers to questions. I don't know if there was answers to it certain times. And you said, and I would rephrase this, you said that year you were off. I would say that year you were on it, because if you wouldn't have been, you wouldn't have come back. And so from everybody else's eyes, you were off because you didn't play. But in your lifestyle, on your Monday mornings, on your daily schedule, you were grinding physically, mentally, spiritually, medically, every which way you could to try to get yourself back.
Yeah, that's what it was. And, I didn't know what it was. I was just, and having you you were great, just trying to give me options and trying to hold my hand to this. But the medical process, I just thought, I had a postseason, scope. Never had a knee surgery, I had a postseason scope, right? And, didn't think, and did everything by the book, right? I was Johnny training room, guy. Like I love those guys. I was close to those guys. I was in there all the time. And so to have shitty results like that and to not get answers and to tour all these top of the food chain doctors and have them say, what did that guy say? Ha ha ha. That's not it. It's this. Oh, and I can fix you. And let me try. Great. Hope. There's a little hope. And then didn't work. And then didn't work. And, it's like, that was a frustrating time, man. And you think medicine is a science, and it's way more of an art. And I saw it up close. And honestly, it helped me kind of not to take it for granted that I got to play. That's why that first game back, man, it was at Lucas Oil. The stadium was pretty fresh, right? And the window at top was open, and I got to block John Henderson, who I would have loved to take him every Sunday. I would love to play against that big son of a gun. But to be able to play again with those guys was like, I was shitting in tall cotton, man. I mean, I was happy to be back, and yeah.
Well, there's something you haven't had since you left the NFL, and it's not the money. It's not the fame. It's none of that stuff. It's the locker room camaraderie. It's the brotherhood. It's the practical jokes. It's a connection. Share with the audience what it's like to be in an NFL locker room with some bros where you're all doing stuff sometimes you don't want to be doing, but you're doing it together, and to live life with those guys. Like you can't do it in the real world. I mean, people don't do it in the real world. Everybody puts up fences between their properties. They clock in and they clock out. I mean, there's no the connectivity. You may have that with your business partner now, but very few people have stuff. So what is that in the NFL locker room?
It's pretty special, because you can make a good argument that your buddies are the best on the planet at what you're doing, and you're doing it together, and you're competing together against the best, with physical consequences and for high stakes, right? So I mean, it's probably every guy's to go challenge himself, right, and take on the dragon, slay the dragon, and do it with your boys, right, and then. The cool part is it's the most politically incorrect place on the planet. You have guys that come from everywhere on the planet, every background, every personality, every upbringing. You got your snooty Notre Dame type guys, and then you get your hillbilly guys from Southwest Oklahoma, and then you got your black guys from South Florida, and you got some suburban guy from Chicago, and it's just everybody with a common goal, and you all kind of know you're the best there is, and so it's a special environment. I mean, I was talking to a guy who was an Army Ranger, and he was a search and rescue diver here just recently, and just met him, and really cool dude. And he was telling some stories about like their training, and he had a son when he was like 18. And so he had a son when he was doing a lot of the, training stuff that's super difficult. And he said, his son was kind of raised in this environment and how special it was, and how like his son's kind of a samurai right now, right? He's just an intense kid, but he's like nothing. He's just unflappable. Nothing bothers him. He's like trying to climb every mountain he can. And he's, he credits it to being around that atmosphere of guys who just, common goal, working together, F the world, right? Let's go do this together. And, I think that's kind of part of why we tune in and why sports are so special to so many people. And because it's a meritocracy. You didn't get in because your dad, or you didn't get in because you knew some guy, right? It's like everybody there belongs. Pick up your weight, right? And let's work and do it together. And so, yeah, that part of it's tough to replicate, man. And that's, I think, what every guy probably misses the most. And it's not necessarily on the field, right? It's in the locker room. It's on the buses. It's at the karaoke bar after the game. It's in the off season playing golf, and it's in all those things. Training, right? So yeah, that's tough to replicate, man. I have not found a way to do that yet. And if I could, I would pursue it. But it's a special place, man.
It is a special place. A lot of practical jokes. Why don't you share for our audience a G-rated practical joke, either in KC or in Indy?
Man, Peyton was pretty good, right? Like, you think all his bandwidth would be eaten up by like studying defenses and stuff, but he would set aside some. Maybe his brothers were helping him, but like he always had some good ones. there was a couple of brothers that were in the support staff, good friends still to this day at the Colts. And so they got golf carts when we were at training camp at Terre Haute. And it was a really hilly campus, right? And the main kind of part of the campus was kind of in the center with this big pond. And then that's where you'd eat. That's where you would meet. And it was at the top of the hill. All your dorms, all your practice facilities, everything else was down below. And so you'd either hump it up there or you'd wait for a ride in a golf cart. And we didn't get golf carts, but all the staff members got golf carts. And these guys were barely staff members. They had no business being golf carts, but having golf carts. They were two brothers, but they each got a golf cart and they would rub it in our faces. And so one night in the middle of the night in training camp, and I was on my first contract, right? I was with Saturday and Dean and Peyton, and I think Dallas Clark was there. And all these guys have been paid, right? They're all established. And I was kind of the one guy who was they can cut my ass and not care about it, really. And so I didn't think about that until the end. But so we get out in the middle of the night. Peyton's got keys. Him and Dean go and get the golf carts and meet us on the beach of this pond, right in the middle. And me and Saturday jump in the pond and swim in this dock, right? It's just this square floating swim dock in the middle of this pond. And so we jump in there. It's got cinder block anchors, and we put them up on top, and we swim it into this beach. And so Peyton and Dean and Dallas got the golf carts there, and we're going to put the golf carts on the dock. And there's a group of kids getting ready for school to start at Rose-Hulman Institute of Technology. There's a little bonfire. And this is kind of the beginning of, camera phones. So somebody takes a picture of Peyton, and so he gets spooked and runs off. And so anyway, we end up getting the carts on there, and Jeff and I swimming out. Long story boring. The golf carts were kind of cockeyed, and it was like this. And we started looking, and we go, look, it's funny if the golf carts are. It's not funny if the golf carts fall off into the end of the pond, right? I'm getting cut for sure. So anyway, a few of us, without our ringleader, went back out there, pushed the dock in, got the carts centered on there, and pushed it back out there. And we all were sworn to secrecy. But I remember laying in my dorm room bed, right from the pond, right? And I'm staring up at the ceiling, and I'm going, what have I done? I'm going to be the fall guy, and these two brothers. And, I knew they weren't going to take too kindly to it, but we all kept our mouths shut. They knew who did it, but, nothing ever happened. But yeah, I'll never forget that. That was, stuff like that break up the drudgery in training camp and kind of make it bearable. Especially back in those days when you could have two of those. And yeah, that was the fun stuff, man.
Ryan, you could have started 200 games if you were in the NFL today. 14 install days, 14 padded practices in training camp, no two-a-days, 18 regular season weeks with a bye.
Yeah.
But only 14 padded practices during the season. That means you got 4 weeks, including your bye weeks, so really 3 game weeks. We're not put on pads at all.
Yeah.
It's all about learning and recovering. Learning, recovery, and you just got to show the coaches you know what you're doing. So when they can trust you to put you in on Sundays. Yeah, you could make 200 games.
Yeah, I know every guy who played in my era, we all have thought that, but it's a good thing. And I kind of cynically thought we would see, a lesser product because of that, but we haven't. And it's a good thing. Saturday was very pivotal in, moving that player health and safety stuff in the 2011 negotiations. And, it's good for those guys, man, because, that's the bad part of the game is the physical toll. And if you can limit that and still have the high level performance and competition, then, it's a no brainer. Everybody wants that. So good for those guys, man.
Ryan, we could talk for 3 hours. I just looked at the time. I want to respect your time. I want to thank you today for being on Pro Mindset. I want to thank you for being an awesome guy, great dad. Wish you and Jess nothing but the best with your kids.